Hey, hi everyone. So let's discuss about API testing questions, okay, and answers, which are I wanted to explain in a little bit easier for you. So if you want textbook definitions, okay, right, to you can go through internet and you can find it. But I wanted to explain in easier way that which you can explain in interviews, as we may not be able to give textbook definitions while we are giving interviews, right? So I will try to give my best to explain in easier way. Just try to understand. Okay, these are the questions I am going through, which are basic API questions. Okay, automation questions I will cover separately with Postman and RESTful library questions. I will take it separately. Now I wanted to cover which are basic API questions, and few of them are real-time questions, which you might need to understand. Okay, what are those and how we do in real time? Okay, okay, let's see. Okay, so first one, what is like API testing? Okay, so as a QA, okay, so we send some request, okay, for particular API that gives us a response. We validate business logic, of this particular API. Okay, so we have, as a, okay, as a QA or tester, what we do, we send a request. Okay, there is a API that gives response back. So as QA, we validate the data, we validate the business conditions, which are, I can say, requirements are met or not. business ex business requirements are met or not, we are going to validate. So that is exactly we do as QA for API testing. So in brief, there is a API, we send the request and we get the response from the API. So we validate the data according to the business conditions, it is giving the response or not. That's it. Okay, so next one, what is API? Okay, API is application program interface. Okay, application programming interface. Okay, application programming interface. Okay, it will have set of protocols which enables, okay, communication between multiple applications. I will tell you with the example. Okay, yeah, just remember there are set of protocols. API means, okay, set of protocols will be there, okay, which establish the communication and starts exchanging the data over the internet. So let's take, you have a mobile net banking application. Okay, you have a web application also, which is a net banking of suppose HDFC Bank. Now you are transferring some amount or to someone. Okay, transaction you have done, debit transaction. Okay, from the mobile net banking. So you encounter that in when you log into web application. Okay, you can see the transaction data which you performed in mobile net banking, and you could see the balance is updated also in web application. Earlier, before transferring, suppose here you were having 1,000 rupees and you transferred 500 rupees to some other person, and you logged into web application, and you observe that here you will have 500 rupees. You performed operation or transaction from mobile net banking, but you will be able to see the updated balance in web application. So how it is updating? So there is a API. There is a API which is exchanging the data between the applications of web and mobile. Otherwise, how it will update? It won't update, right? You performed through mobile net banking, and you are able to see in web application the balance is updated. So that is called API. It exchanges data between multiple applications or multiple devices. It is called API. Hope you understood. You can comment if you are having any queries there. How does API works? Okay. We send the request and we receive the response from the server. Okay. So API, okay, from the client, we submit the request. Okay. Client, what we do. Client means what? User, maybe user. Okay. Client is user. Okay. We are submitting a request. Okay. I am saying I want to get the I have a view balance, suppose in my mobile banking. Okay, view balance button. When you log in into ICICI net banking, suppose you will not be able to see directly balance. Okay, there is a view balance button. Okay, so you are trying to submit a request. Okay, that may be get request or post request, whatever it is. Okay, so you clicked on view balance. Immediately it sends one request to the server, that is called client is submitted one request, and immediately server gives a response, and you will be able to see the balance. That's how API works. Okay, client sends the request with the necessary information. That necessary information, maybe it will be having what is the method, okay, what is the payload, what are the headers. So this is a necessary information which needs for API. So server, based on the data, based on the input data which you provided, server gives the response back. Okay, that's how that works. Components of API. Okay, API will have, okay, URL, endpoint, okay, headers, some authentication information as well. All these needed. Okay, otherwise server will not understand what user needed or what is the request user submitted. Okay, HTTP method, these all information, it has to come as a request. Okay, so these are the components will be present. Okay, will be present in API. Okay, so and I can say payload data also. It may be JSON format or it may be XML format. Depends on the API, which is a REST API or SOAP API. Okay, so but the information should go. All these information should be present. Okay, so next one, best practices for API testing. Okay, so we need to cover all the edge case scenarios also. What is mean by this? Cover all the edge case scenarios. Suppose there is a age field. Okay, I am filling the one form, user form. There is a age field. Normally we would see in the user interface. So in the form of API, what it will be? Okay, there is a payload. In the payload, we have a age key, and we will have a, we need to pass the data for this age key. Okay, so for this, okay, it should be tested thoroughly. Okay, how it is behaving for 0, how it is behaving for 100. Okay, and we need to understand requirement also. Okay, as accepts, okay, as accepted range of the values. Okay, does it accepts from 1 to 110, or does it accepts 1 to 120? So depends on that, we should be validated this particular age field thoroughly, covering all the edge cases. How we cover? When you are validating uh, some input ranges, okay, data ranges from UI level, okay, boundary value analysis, in that way we cover, right? So here also we need to cover all the edge cases, and even we need to cover, we need to see how it is behaving if I pass as a string, suppose. So that's how we need to cover all the edge cases as a best practices for while testing APIs. Next, we need to keep track of all the API versions. Okay, what is meant by API versions? Normally, while you see the API URL, you will have a v1, okay, get balance normally. Okay, what is mean by this v1? This is a versioning. Okay, in v1, okay, there are some functionalities which are implemented. In v2, there are some functionalities may be modified. Okay, so in version 1, what are the updates are happened, or what are the new enhancements happened for this particular API? We should be having detailed information. For V2, what are the updates, what are the new functionalities are added for this particular get balance API? We should know. So that that changes may be related to headers. That may be suppose if it is a post call some other API. Okay, there may be some, okay, key values, data types updates, or some new keys are added in payload. So those all those things will be should be listed, and you should be aware of that before going for testing. So that is called versioning, API versioning. Okay, so environment management. Okay, for testing, use consistent environment. Okay, for testing to avoid disturbances. Okay, any discrepancies. So use proper environment for all the time. And data management, we need to use realistic data to perform API testing. Okay, all the times, okay, mocking of API or fake data will not work. When it goes to production, it may uh, behave differently. Okay, while testing, you are testing with the limited data. Okay, it behaves maybe very well. So we should be, okay, tested with realistic data. Okay, so that's about best practices. And one more thing, continuous integration we need to do, and catch issues very early for APIs all the time. So when you are executing, okay, automated APIs in daily basis, okay, or maybe the postman daily, if you are executing, if there are some changes, if there are any changes happen, immediately you will come to know with the failures, right, immediately. So that is a one thing. Okay, continuous integration. Analyze the results. Okay, so these all points you can explain in interviews. Okay, best practices while you are testing the APIs. Okay, can you explain the difference between SOAP and REST? Okay, this is the one between REST and SOAP. Okay, it's a straightforward. You can go through that? Okay, uh, everywhere you will get the answer. So, a few points I will explain if you want. SOAP accepts only XML format data. Okay, and it is a more secure than REST. Okay, and it has a built-in error handling and support more complex operations actually. Okay, and REST. Okay, will we know we have a multiple HTTP methods, get, post, put, delete in REST, and it is a stateless. What is mean by stateless? Okay, each request, okay, when you are sending from client to server, must contain all the information. That is called stateless. So REST is stateless. Okay, and typically it uses JSON or XML for data interchange. It is very easy to implement for developers and more scalable for web services. Okay, just I will give SOAP XML and secure. It has a protocols like HTTP, SMTP, TCP. When it comes to REST, it's HTTP protocols, and it accepts JSON XML data, XML format, and it is a scalable, and it is stateless. Stateless means we should, each request should have complete information, must contain all the information. Okay, while sending from client to server. So that is a little bit about SOAP and REST. You can go through it is if you wanted more information. And what are the main HTTP methods are used in RESTful APIs? As we know, there are get, post, put, delete, batch. Okay, these are the major HTTP methods which we use daily. Next one, let me go 8 one. Explain the concept of RESTful API statelessness. As just now I told you, stateless is it should have a complete information while you are sending request. Okay, REST is stateless. Okay, so that's complete information request. Each request should have complete information that need to understand by the server. Okay, to understand the server, it should have a complete information from the request. Next one, what are the difference between synchronous and asynchronous? Okay, so I think uh, sorry, common status codes. Okay, it is 11 10th one, synchronous and asynchronous. Common status codes. Okay, just you should remember at least few of the status codes. Okay, 201 created, 200. Okay, for get calls normally we get 200. For post calls we get 201 as a response. If there is no content which you are trying to uh, delete, right? Normally we get no content. You are trying to delete some data or some user, and it is established connection from client and server, and there is no data. Suppose like this we get, and there are multiple 400 bad request comes when you are passing some invalid information from the payload. You are passing some information which is not correct, or maybe headers are not correct. So that time we get 400 bad requests. 401, your authorization means your credentials are not correct. Or you generated some bearer token and you are trying to pass that bearer token as a header and it is not correct. Okay. And again 404, URL not found, and 500 internal server error. So that's how we should remember few of them at least. Next one, synchronous and asynchronous calls. Synchronous and asynchronous API. Okay. Whenever it is asynchronous call, okay, when client sends the request to server, okay, client waits to respond the server. Okay, and it blocks some time, blocks until the response is received. It doesn't do any multiple other actions while it is waiting as well. So for asynchronous, the client sends the request and waits for the server to respond. So the client is blocked until the response is received. Any doubt here for asynchronous calls? So because of this, okay, uh, it can lead that server takes long time. It can lead to inefficiencies if the server takes long time. Okay, as the server is not responding immediately, so server like client is blocked there. Okay, so synchronous. If you need more information, just go through some uh, through internet. So in synchronous, right, when the client sends a request, okay, and continues processing other tasks as well, it won't block, okay, until server responds. Okay, when server responds, the client is notified, okay, with some callback functions when the response is ready and when response is ready to send to the client. It is more efficient and it does not block the client. Okay, so and continues processing other tasks. Okay, just go through for other information if you wanted to know some more other points about synchronous and asynchronous. Okay, so next one, common challenges in API testing. So here also, okay, parameter combinations here, as we were doing, okay, some many edge cases we need to perform here. Okay, so you should be aware of complete architecture of that particular API at any cost. It is not like UI, okay, just the business, like suppose there is a one field which is a again take age field, okay, and straightforward what values need to be given and in that way. But when it comes to APIs, right, there may be multiple keys and values, and there are some business conditions which might, okay, dependent on each other. Okay, suppose there is a age field and uh, there is a age field. If age is 18, more than 18 or 18 plus, then only user is valid for account opening. So you might need to validate here multiple conditions, multiple with values. So in that way, you should be aware of complete API uh, working nature, and for each key and values in a request payload. Okay, what are the data types it should be accepted, and which one is the mandatory field and which ones are optional fields. So everything you should know while testing APIs. So parameter combination is little bit, you should be very well aware. That is one key challenge. So how we will overcome this is understanding complete API architecture, working nature, and by going through documentation of the API through Swagger, and we should be very well aware before testing it. Next, sequencing of APIs. Sometimes what happens, okay, if you wanted to execute particular API, okay, it can be executed whenever the previous API is successfully executed. So you should know which one should be executed first and which one should be executed after later. So sequencing also. And you should be aware of, okay, like documentation. Okay, the documentation is up to date or not, and if it is not up to date, you should be followed developers and need to ask to update Swagger or Confluence all the documents with the changes in every sprint, I can say. Okay, that is your duty as a QA, okay, to maintain up to date information by following up all the leads and developers. As if it is some mismatch, right, in future you will be faced with functionalities. If you ignore few changes, you are going to validate incorrectly all the APIs. Okay, yeah, so you can go through some other challenges. Okay, okay, next let's go to some other questions which are intermediate level questions. Okay, what is mean by rate limiting and throttling in API terminology? Okay, so rate limiting is, I'm going to post all these questions, okay, don't worry, questions as well as answers in the given comments Telegram group. Okay, just you can download there. You can follow the Telegram group if you wanted this documentation. Okay, so what is rate limiting? Okay, setting the setting the hard limit of the number of requests. Okay, so within time frame, within specific time frame, how many, okay, user request should access particular server. Okay, so within the time, if you see limiting, okay, rate limiting, okay, the name itself tells that, okay, there should be some limit should be defined. As it is a API, okay, so obviously it will be number of requests, right? As we are discussing about API on API context, okay, limiting is limiting the number of requests. Okay, so for particular, suppose for a particular 10 seconds, how many requests should go for, or how many requests should accept the server is called rate limiting. Okay, that is defined by the developers, sorry, that will be defined by the BA, and they will give us, okay, how many it should be accepted. Okay. Suppose there is a products API, and it should be accepted, suppose 500 requests for every 30 seconds. Okay. So if it crossed that particular number of requests to the server, we need to test whether it is giving 429 too many requests status code or not. Any doubt in this? So how we test this? We need to know first number of requests, how many it is going to accept. And we need to generate those many requests, maybe through maybe through Zmeter we can hit the server number of these many times. And we should be seeing the, okay, in that particular time limit, whether we are getting the status code 429 or not. Okay, that is called rate limiting. Okay, so now throttling. Okay, what is mean by throttling? Throttling is like, okay, it's a temporarily slowing down, or I can say blocking the requests when limit is reached. When limit is reached, suppose there is a 500 only, it should be accepted. Okay, in a 15 seconds or 20 seconds. So within 10 seconds, it reached 500 requests are received by the server, suppose. Okay, there is a, suppose for every 20 seconds it should accept only 500 requests, suppose. But within 2 seconds, okay, 500 requests are sent by the clients, okay, or client requests are received by the server. So now this throttling, okay, is the one which takes care of slowing down, okay, that particular request when limit is reached. And after 20 seconds, again, it is going to send 500. So it is like a traffic police. Okay. There are so many vehicles are coming on the road, but he doesn't allow to go everyone at once. There may be traffic jam. So he will try to send within the, okay, within that 10 seconds, or we can say signaling system we have, right? Within 10 seconds, okay, user like a vehicles travels, and after again 20 seconds, okay, people are allowed to go. Okay, meantime, you will be stopped there. Okay, so it's a like a traffic police, how he controls, okay, vehicles, and after that particular few seconds are resetting the time, okay, we are ready to go. So just understand it. Okay, this is blocking requests when time is reached, when limit is reached. So example is products API should be accepted in 20 seconds, 500 requests. But within 2 seconds, 500 requests are received to the by the server, and now it is blocked. For next 18 seconds, it is blocked. Once 20 seconds is completed, again the next 500 requests will be going to the server. So this is the, okay, it blocks a request, and it sends the once time is reset. So hope you understood in very easy way. So explain the concept of API throttling, that is also covered. Okay. And difference between throttling and rate limit. Yeah, okay. So rate limiting is limiting the number of requests, but throttling is blocking requests when limit is reached and sending the requests once time is reset. That particular whatever throttling time is there for a particular API, once time is reached, next set of requests will be sent. Okay. If you still have some queries, just go through difference between rate limiting and throttling. So you will understand more points if you want it. What is authentication and authorization? Okay. So authentication is the one which we are going to validate API uh, with some credentials, suppose. Okay. So verifies the user's identity. Okay. It confirms that the valid user is entered into the application. That is called authentication. Authorization is the particular user, okay, is correctly or within the system, okay, what he can do, okay, what he can do is the authorization. Okay. Suppose if you take simple example, okay, in organization we will have a common folders, organization level. Okay. You are, okay, allowed to open any folder or not? No. You will not allow to open others' personal information. Only you can open your folder. So you are restricted there. You are not authorized to open any others folders there. Okay. There is a HR team folders. You cannot access that. You are not authorized. So that is called authorization. Okay. For authentication, we get 401 error if it is not valid. For authorization, you will get 403 status code when you are not allowed to access some information. Through API, you are trying to access, okay, which this particular user doesn't have a access to get the some information from the API. So you are going to get 403 error. Okay, there may be multiple users, right? Suppose you are logging in with admin, suppose there are admin users and there are normal users. So admin users will have a some more access. Okay, suppose there is a one API which will work for only for admin users. Okay, suppose a modification of bank balance of the user. Normal user will not have access that. Suppose if you try to log in with a normal user and if you try to update the balance of any user, it should not be work. It should not work, and you should get the 403. So 403 we get when user is not authorized to access or not permitted to access that information. Okay. Okay. So let's see next one. So difference between 401 and 403. Just now we discussed. Okay. 401 we get when your credentials are not correct. Okay. You are not authenticated successfully. Authorized 403 we get when you are not having access to, okay, to get some information, we get 403. Put versus patch differences. Okay. Put method and patch method differences. Yeah. So 403 we discussed. Put versus patch and how we can test the patch. Okay, recently I got some interview question as well. How do you test a patch? Okay. Put we know. We wanted to modify, okay, or update the, okay, update the resource, okay, okay, update the information of the particular API information. Okay. So the entire payload we need to send, and we will try to modify the data with the put. But with the patch, okay, so patch method is used for partial update. So it is useful when you want to update only a few fields of a resource without replacing the entire resource. Suppose there is a employee, okay, you wanted to update employee information of only email ID. Okay, so suppose, okay, employee and employee ID is suppose 145. Okay, so you wanted to update only email address of this particular employee. Okay, so you can use like this, and you can pass only, okay, you can pass only email information in payload, and you can use patch method, and it will be updated email. So this will be given by the developer. Okay, he will give you, okay, this is how API URL should be while you are sending patch. Okay, this is how your payload should be while validating the patch API. Okay, it is not decided by QA, okay, how URL should be and how data should be passed. Okay, I mean to say actual payload. Okay, what is the structure we should know, okay, to send it for the patch request. We cannot decide. Okay, first we need to understand the requirement for patch for the on the particular API, and we will be working on that. Hope you understood this put versus patch difference. Now, what is upstream and downstream uh, calls in APIs? Okay, it's very easy. You just understand in a simple way. Upstream is the service that provide data, okay, to other service. Okay, so it provides data or functionality to other service. Consumes data. Okay, this is, okay, it consumes the data from other services. Okay, so downstream is it consumes the data from other service. like it is like a front-end applications. So we have seen, okay, bank balance update one API example, okay, while we are discussing what is API, okay. So how that API data is updating, okay, in UI, in net banking UI, how it is updating? Because, okay, there is one downstream API which is get balance. That API is used front-end application. Front-end application is used that particular API as it is consumed. I can say consumed this front-end application. That is a downstream of downstream API that is, okay. So for upstream, you can say we see weather updates daily, right? In our mobile. Okay. How we are able to see? Okay, there is a weather updates API which they sending the information, or they are providing the information through that API. Whether information they are sending or they are providing, okay, to the users. Okay, so weather updates API is the one. Okay, in example, it is a upstream API. So what is difference between monolithic and versus microservices? It is a important question. Just try to understand. Okay, it is like built as single, okay, single unified unit. So whenever, okay, whenever there is a some production release is there, okay, the deployment process for monolithic application, okay, is you need, our developers need to, okay, uh, do lot of work like making server down and database down, because everything is like combined, or I can say um, those all of them are single unit, uh, and all of them are interdependent. DB, APIs, and UI files, everything they need to deploy, okay. And whenever there is a some small change, if we wanted to, our developers wants to deploy, okay, everything, the complete application should go to maintenance stage. So all the components are interdependent. That is called monolithic. Okay, you cannot deploy independently services, okay, but microservice is smaller independent component. If you wanted to, if you want to deploy some service, you don't need to get or make down all these DB, API, okay, user interface. You don't need to do actually. Okay, these are independent components. and it is very lightweight. So it is very easy to deploy. Okay, and it is independent. So that's why complete all the applications are migrating to building microservices, as there are some more advantages than monolithic. Okay, if the applications are huge applications, very big applications, normally, okay, people try to build microservices. If applications are very small and data is small, okay, in development point of view, they go for monolithic application architecture. Okay, just try to understand more points. If you wanted to understand more as a QA point of view, just you should be knowing at least basic steps and what is what, and uh, advantages and disadvantages of them. Okay, so, and last question. Okay, when developer is not accepting your defect which is raised by you, suppose, okay, what you do as a QA? What is your approach? From API point of view, there are some extra steps we need to follow. That's why just I kept this particular question actually. Okay, these are like commonly what we provide when there is a bug occurred. Okay, evidences we provide. What all evidences we provide? We provide screenshots. We provide what input data we used for testing purpose that for that particular scenario. So these are common things which we provide. Okay, but for APIs, right, we need to provide the logs information as well, because just with the screenshots of postman status code, okay, and request and headers, whichever you used, and payload, with this information, okay, he may not be able to debug the issue. So extra you need to provide logs information. We need to connect server in whichever system it is available, server is deployed, and we hit the API. We need to capture the logs from the server. This is the extra step we need to perform. And when you provide these logs, they will be able to understand easily. Okay. And they can guide you. If you are doing some mistake also, data, suppose there is a one field which should be accepted number, and you are trying to keep on passing, okay, some other value, and suppose somehow they have somehow there is a null point exception is coming for that particular field, the data which you are passing, and they have not handled properly, suppose developers. So that information exceptions will be displayed in the server, which are not handled by the developers properly in their code. So those exceptions you will not be able to see in the postman. So that should be taken from the logs and should be shared to the developer with the all the additional informations. So those are the questions which you should be aware of. So postman and automation questions I will take separately in separate video. Yeah, if you have any queries or if you have any other questions, if you want me to answer, you can comment there. I can work on that and I can give you the information. Okay. Thank you.